Welcome, everybody. My name is Lou, but welcome back to what some people are calling episode 10 of Brits and Yanks Talk Trek, a podcast for Trekkies, Trekkers, and everything in between, brought together as a group of friends from both sides of the pond with an obsession about a little game called Star Trek Fleet Command. Today, we're going to be talking about Star Trek Fleet Command, but we're going to be deep diving into a subject all about Star Trek, and we're going to talk about the cultural differences between the US and the UK too. Please remember that we want this amazing community to please get involved with this podcast, as it has been doing so much ever since it launched. I can't believe we've made it to 10 episodes, and we're having so much fun with this. But please share out your suggestions with us. We've got so many topics that we want to cover, but we also want to know what you want to hear as well. So let us know on the Discord. Link to that is in the episode description so that you can get us all of your ideas. Do me a favor, share this out with a friend, somebody at home, work, in your alliance, if you're here in STFC. Let's share the reach of this, and let's get more and more people listening to Brits and Yanks Talk Trek. Consider becoming a member as well. So the cost of just a coffee a month, that's our lowest membership. It's $3 a month. Go to itslube.com and you can join to become a member to support us financially. Thank you so much, everybody, for everybody who's done that so far. So who's here? Obviously, I'm here. We've got Mr. Perfection himself. We've got Silvers. How has your day been, my friend?
It's been great. How are you doing?
Absolutely great, thank you. Very busy, but yeah, no, rocking along. Stewie, we've got the storyteller himself. Stewie, how are you? Feeling energetic, motivated, excited about this one?
Yay! How is everyone?
Christ
Is that
almighty.
any better?
Well, I nearly fell off my chair because I actually did sound genuinely quite interested. But
Is
yeah,
that better? Yeah.
Good. We've got the Tribble Mother herself returning to the stage of Brits and Yanks Talk Trek. Welcome, Minnie. Welcome back. Did you have a chance to listen to the last episode? What did you think?
Oh, I did. I absolutely loved it, and the enthusiasm from Stewie, the storyteller himself, was well, yes.
It's contagious, isn't it? It's contagious when you listen to him speak. It just makes you just feel like you just want to get up and go do something exciting. But the less said about that, the better. Candy, we have got the king of the graphic himself. Well, welcome back to you, buddy. How's your day been?
Today's actually been pretty good. Weather's been nice and cool, Dave. Nice break from the 100+ degree Fahrenheit weather we've had for the past 2 weeks.
They are freedom units for anybody not sure. That's probably about 33 in real units. It's actually started to rain a bit here, to be fair, which is quite nice. It's been quite a welcome change. I haven't had to go water the grass because we've planted some new grass seeds, but what a boring conversation, so we won't talk about that anymore. We will move straight on to our Star Trek Fleet Command topic of the pod. And the topic today, we're going to be talking about transporter patterns. Now, this is obviously a very old mechanic, but we're going to take it back to basics, and we're going to pretend that you've just maxed your first officer with regards to shards, and you've earned your first set of transporter patterns. You've got your first 1,000 or 1,100 for the newer ones. Where do you put them? Where do you start saving your transporter patterns, and where do you put them into? So I've asked the panel to come up with the top 3 transporter pattern officers for brand new players, and where do you go? Now, I can see there being some overlap on this, so there will be some honourable mentions and other things to consider. But I think we should start off with, let's start off with you, Stewie. Let's start off with where you think that you would go to as a brand new player. You've just got your first set of transporter patterns, and you've got a hell of a lot more than there was when we first unlocked them, isn't there? There's a hell of a lot more choice.
Just a few. Yeah. If he wasn't the one that you maxed to unlock the TPs in the first place, then it really has to be Pike, hasn't it? The original Pike, OG Pike.
Unlocking him without a remote shadow of a doubt. I mean, explain why Pike is just so important.
He's still used in Endgame now to boost up officer abilities. He's used in completely different way to what we used to then, which was for the mitigation sides. Now when you start getting more niche crews, he's being used in silence, for example, to give flocks a bit of a boost. He's used to boost trips. He's just used all over the place just to get that little bit extra out of your officer abilities, and he's been a staple since day one. And what you need him for, you get at level 1. So he's a must-have. If he's not what you've got to unlock the TPs, then he has to be the first.
He absolutely, I cannot disagree with that. I don't think anybody would argue with that. Again, just a quick bit of knowledge clarity. Remember, the captain's maneuver of any officer is only affected or only improved by synergy. So rank 1 to rank 5, that is exactly the same, and only additional synergy group officers would actually improve the captain's ability, and it's the officer ability that improves by promoting said officer. And obviously Pike as well, just to completely reiterate, I hate doing this, but to agree with Stewie, I'm obviously a G6 player. I'm an Ops 63. I use Pike every single day with Pike Moreau, Pike Moreau and E-Data. That is my standard go-to grind crew for my dailies to kill my faction hostiles. So up in the 60s, I'm still using Pike Moreau as an absolute staple. I didn't use it quite as much in G5 as what I use it now in G6, but G3, G4, it was an absolute staple, and I totally agree. Let's work around the panel. Minnie, we will come to you next. Give us another one of your absolute key unlocks in the TPs for somebody that's just started unlocking transporter pattern officers.
For me, my first go-to was Tendy for the increase in hull. Now, I know we all know that below decks are now different, and we've got better X, Ys, and Zs coming from them all. But in the transporter patterns, plus 100% to hull health, I mean, it's just brilliant if you've not got your ships up to par, and I didn't. So that's exactly where I started with Tendy.
Absolutely. I mean, we're blessed, aren't we, now with the buildings and the researches that boost hull health. There's so much of it about now. But remember, early game, you're probably starting to unlock transporter patterns in the mid-20s now if you're playing strategically and you get getting good. A lot of those researches and things aren't even available to you. You can't get your buildings high enough to make a massive, massive difference to it. And that boost from Tendy, just improving your survivability, because remember that your shields can drop as many times as you like, but as soon as your hull drops, that's it, you go kaboom. So the hull health, super, super important. No, really good one. Really agree with that. What about yourself, Candy?
For myself, if like unlocking it for the first time, the first one I actually kind of went towards was Quark, mainly for his protected cargo ability as his captain's ability. I use him every day when I go mining, just to kind of give my miner a lot more of a protected cargo buff, kind of build the ship's crew up with as much protected cargo as possible when you're going out to do your daily resource mining runs. And then also doubles on mining Monday when you pair him with the rest of the Ferengi crew to maximize the Ferengi whip when you're doing your Latinum rush.
Yeah, I mean, even his mining speed at 160, when you start adding in the likes of Arok into there, and obviously some of the other guys that boost mining speed, because remember that Quark is a very similar, he's just a better version of like 10 of 11. Do you know what I mean? I mean, he's got protected cargo, but his mining boost ability is exactly the same of 10 of 11, the Borg Tribble. So yeah. It's a fantastic utility officer, and arguably better than 10 of 11 because he actually has a worthwhile use captain's maneuver. Totally agree. Really good shout. Silvers?
I'm going to have to go with Riker for this one. Thinking along the terms of someone that is in their high 20s, low 30s ops range, having an officer like that for Armadas would be very game-changing for someone in that ops range. They probably don't have Cisco unlocked. They probably don't have Chakotay unlocked. So having Riker as their Armada officer right at the start of their transporter pattern career would be game-changing for a lot of players.
Totally agree. And obviously there's so many different armadas, isn't there? And obviously you're starting to introduce to them at sort of 23, and then you obviously get to like the Eclipse ones. I mean, armadas become a huge part of the game, don't they? And having a specific armada-based officer is obviously a really good idea. And I'm going to stick to a similar ilk to that, really, I think. And I think I'm going to go for 6 of 11. So 6 of 11 is a fantastic officer for a couple of reasons. He's got an absolutely killer officer ability. Absolutely killer officer ability. I'm really, really happy with how that works. Obviously, increasing your penetration, so the amount of damage that actually goes through. Yeah, I said penetration. The amount of penetration that goes through to the enemy ship.
We were all thinking it.
I know, you were all thinking it. I said it. But one of them things to think about. 6 of 11 for me. And the other thing with 6 as well is that he's got such outstanding stats. He is one of the best stat officers in the game, especially at low levels and even at the early tiers. For somebody in their 20s, 30s, it's just going to be an officer that you're just going to absolutely use all the time. If you're not using him on the bridge because you're going to fight an armada, you're going to throw him below deck for stats to be able to work on that. So that would be probably one of my first picks, aside from what the rest of the panel have mentioned. Let's look back round. Stewie, have you got another one?
I have, but they sort of come as a pair.
Okay.
So it's Yuri and Skinny Mud.
Okay, talk about that. You're gonna have to get a bit technical here, but go on.
Yuri's got this ability which basically has a chance to rejuvenate the shield when it's depleted. Okay. Now, what people don't realize is that literally soaks up a hit regardless of how big it is. So overflow from that one hit doesn't then go to your hull. So you can be hit by a weapon, say you've got 10 health left. You could be hit by a weapon that does 10 damage or 10 million damage, and you will just lose the shield for that one hit. Okay, so it's actually really, really strong, and people underestimate how powerful it can be. But when it's coupled with Skinny Mud, who has a chance to rejuvenate some hull when your shield depletes, you can end up in this sort of like rolling effect of shield goes down, hull gets replenished. Shield goes down, hull gets replenished, and it was one of the first sort of like cheese crews for the heavy traders in the capital systems.
Absolutely,
back in the day.
Beverly, I think Beverly was one of the other key components to when we were using Mud with it. But yeah, they work as a fantastic pair. Obviously, same synergy group as well, so you do get some additional boosts and stuff from that. So no, really agree with that.
Can I make a correction?
You can.
Go
on. Skinny Mud doesn't improve or increase the hull health. It improves your damage output when the shields drop. So with Yuri, shields drop.
Sorry, that is correct.
Your damage increases by X amount. I think it's 200% for one of the first couple tiers, and that's what you were alluding
It does the
to.
opposite. Yeah, it does the opposite. What it does is it skyrockets the damage instead. Well
Yes.
done. Yeah, it skyrockets the damage through looping instead. Quite correct. Also, Yuri is still one of the go-tos for a meat shield on a ship during solos for people that still take multiple ships up to solos. They throw her on there just so that you can soak up extra hits so that your big ships can do the damage.
Absolutely. And obviously we have got some of those crews in the officer tool as well, aren't we, in the solo armada section. So by all means, please go and check that out from our Discord and look at some crews that are using Eurydice, because obviously it is quite a complex crew in the way that it works. It's quite an advanced crew. You've got to sort of understand it to make sure that you are utilising that sort of thing properly. Silvers?
I'm going to go back to someone that's very similar to Pike, and that would be Jean-Luc Picard.
Okay.
His captain's ability is slightly weaker than Pike's, but with synergy, or one side of synergy, it provides the exact same output. And when combined with Beverly for synergy, that pair does work on armadas. Whereas Pike and Moreau, their officer abilities themselves don't work on armadas. So using the example that Stewie gave of Eurydice being used to keep shields up for solo armadas, having Beverly there to increase your mitigation with Jean-Luc as captain just creates a powerful crew to keep the ship alive.
Again, same synergy group, which obviously means you're getting that bigger boost as well, which is good. No, really like it. Minnie?
Right, I'm going to change it ever so slightly and go back to the transporter patterns themselves, because the next one, obviously, I had Pike already maxed, and I had Chris Pine's officer.
Strange New Worlds.
Kirk maxed.
Oh, sorry.
So after Tendy, I then went with Carol, because getting her maxed as quick as possible gives me more transporter patterns.
Because of the
and we get her
chest.
tokens every month. Exactly.
So you sort of thought, well, I'll do a bit of investment into an officer that I know I'm going to be getting regular shards of to get even more transporter patterns to then work on the next officer. Do you know what I mean? And, do you know what I mean? And that sort of speculate to accumulate. Do you know what I mean? That is a pattern, and they do end up snowballing, don't they, to the point where you have that many officers paying out transporter patterns that wouldn't even enter your thoughts in like your 50s or your late 40s or something. But when you are early game, I mean, potentially doing something like that, like maxing the likes of Kirk and Gorkon and Nero, which you can do pretty easy with the faction recruits, moving on to somebody like Carol that, again, you've got a good steady drip for. Yeah, I totally get that as well.
Exactly.
What about yourself, Candy?
And another one that I've kind of focused on more recently has been Giorgio, since sourcing in the regular recruit area for Captain Giorgio is like still not fantastic. Being able to get her, being able to get her to the transporter stores definitely helps, especially when you're trying to hit up in the freebooters area, especially during like Cerritos Wednesdays to kind of maximize the amount of points you can get.
No, really good shout. I agree. And obviously, her burning ability as well is better in certain scenarios than what Nero's is, even though it has a lower percentage. Obviously, it lasts for 2 rounds. It kicks in for abilities at the start of the round as well, which is critical for officers that use burning to actually proc another ability. Totally agree. So you've got a few fantastic options there. I'm going to throw 4 sort of honourable mentions in here. And the first one of them sort of comes as a group of 3, and that is the Borg officers. So the Borg officers in there, which are 3 of 11, 4 of 11, and 11 of 11, are the Borg counterparts to Pring, Ston, and Barrett. And what they do is they actually give you the ability to have what you would have from a max rare of the original officers. You'll get that at tier 1 of the epic Borg versions of them. I think just getting all 3 of them unlocked and having that additional mining crew, because you can still use the originals for your mining crews, but then having a secondary mining crew can be hugely beneficial to your game. And then the final one that I wanted to really quickly mention was Deanna Troi. And I mentioned this randomly because she's not used a lot, but what she does have as her captain's ability is a reduction in crit chance against Armada targets. So you only need her at tier 1, and she can be really, really beneficial in certain scenarios where Armadas have a relatively low crit chance, just for somebody to throw on like a sacrificial lamb to go and reduce the critical chance on the Armadas to try and help your team survive. That can be really beneficial to you. Okay, so that's transporter patterns, sort of the officers.
Before you move on.
Yeah, shoot.
I do have another correction. Sorry. The officer ability for 1111 is not the same as that of Barrett. Barrett's officer ability was intended to remove the hull health of the opponent if they were attacked
and it never worked. Yeah.
On a node. And you're right that it did never work, and that's why it changed to a warp speed ability, but I didn't want to correct him because why not?
No, absolutely. And to be fair, I think that was a change for the better, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? Changing from that little damage reduction over to a warp speed increase, we can all take that. So, no, fantastic.
It's at least a bonus that works. So sure.
Exactly, yeah.
And Lube, just quickly before you sunset teleporter patterns, there is one other use for teleport patterns. It's not
Transporter
necessarily
patterns.
super them things. It's not necessarily the most economical way of doing it, but they can be used in the Apex event.
They can.
Okay. Even if you've maxed the characters, the actual officers, so you can still cash in on the maxed ones to get the shards, even though it then pays you transporter patterns back, but still scores in the Apex event as it's augmented characters.
Yeah, as in claiming that shard, and that works for all recruit leaderboards. So, I mean, I get why you would do it for the Apex. It saves a grind. Go and burn a few transporter patterns if you are swimming in them. In early stage play, that's probably something I would push against quite heavily. Just go out there, do the grind and get it. But once you get to the point where you've got everything that you need out of there, then yeah, absolutely, that can be a quick way for you to complete an event or any recruit event if you really need to. Totally agree. So we are going to move on to one of my favorite sections. We are going to move on to Freedom and Reason. Yes. Freedom and Reason is here. And the topic that we've chosen today, one of my favorites, we are going to be talking about British versus US comedy shows. Now, I think I need to preface this by saying that I think the cultural differences between what each side find funny, i.e. the Brits are actually funny and the Americans struggle at it, I think we need to sort of go into what do we enjoy, what comedy shows did we like growing up, what do we like now, the types of humor. But I mean, if I was going to throw out there what my favorite comedy show is of all time, it is a British sitcom, a situation comedy, and it's Only Fools and Horses. Now, I will throw a bet out there to anybody, and I am happy to do this live on any stream, and anybody can write the questions. There is nobody that I have ever met in my life, and again, I am happy to get big-headed on this, that can out-trivia me on Only Fools and Horses. It is the only thing where I would say that I know pretty much everything about the show, and the comedy value within that. And British comedy developed, and I think Stewie will back me up here because he was there when the likes of Dad's Army was made in the 40s. He'll be able to back me up here. That comedy in the UK has moved on slightly, and it's changed from being... It was always relatively sarcastic, but the slapstick element of things has sort of been removed, and more clever witticisms have been put in to more current and recent comedy shows, and that's sort of been added in. And the slapstick, oh, he fell over, oh, he tripped over something, that sort of stuff has been removed in most cases. And something like Only Fools and Horses and the likes of Fawlty Towers and other of the great British sitcoms, they have a blend between the two of modern day comedy, and they've aged so well. I mean, Stewie, back me up here. British sitcoms, what's your take?
Like you said, that the names that you were rattling off there were all big favourites of mine. Fawlty Towers, I used to watch with my dad when I was younger.
Do not mention the war.
Don't mention the war, yeah. When the inspector came round, everything, it was just so good. I mean, it's stuff that, unfortunately, some would say fortunately, you just wouldn't get away with nowadays, because it wouldn't be considered PC or correct. But in those days, I think people accepted the humor for being humor, and they as much as it wasn't correct, and it rode the line a little bit. It, it was meant it came from a good place, and it gave you some warm laughs, that's for sure. And I think we're a little worse off for not having that stuff. But equally, and especially like through the 80s into the 90s, when we started seeing the things of stuff like Bread coming along, and I mean, that was hilarious, and that was all script by then. It was no longer this slapstick side of things, you know. And then you had more recently things like Shameless and stuff like that, where they've gone to the other end, and they go more for the shock value. But that's what people like nowadays, and you evolve with the stuff that you actually watch. And I mean, British comedy is amazing. It really is. And I do like to look at the US counterparts, and very few have hit the mark when they're doing the remakes. I mean, things like The Office, the American Office, is amazing. It's brilliant.
That did hit it.
It did hit it, but a lot of the time it doesn't. And I suppose you could argue it's the same the other way around. If British people try to emulate an American style sitcom, it doesn't. I mean, if you want to watch something that's like Friends, you watch Friends. You don't watch something else. But I just find that the humor is and this isn't meant as an insult. It's just a little bit more clever sometimes. I mean, the likes of Black Books and stuff like that, where it's all in the script, and so funny, so funny.
Did you mean Blackadder?
No, Black Books. Blackadder was amazing, but there was the show called Black Books. The little Irish guy that
I'm not sure
ran a
about that
bookstore.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that one. But I mean, I've always just. I mean, we'll get a take of a Yank now. But I've always found that when.
Excuse me.
Sorry, did I say that wrong? we'll get the opinion of a Yank in a minute. We won't be taking a Yank. We won't be taking a Yank because that could be interpreted wrong and edited into something rude. So we definitely won't be taking that. But no, I mean, like things like The Office. I mean, the first series of The Office was literally a clone of Ricky Gervais's version, where it was basically the same storylines. But then The Office took off and it ended up having 6-7 seasons or something like that over in the US. And oh my God.
9. I believe.
9 seasons. They played an absolute blinder with it, and they did more than, I mean, we don't tend to go that long with many things. There's not many of our comedies. I mean, you look at the likes of Fawlty Towers, that had 2 seasons. Blackadder had 4. Do you know what I mean? Some of the great ones only had a couple of seasons. Father Ted. I mean, Father Ted was amazing as well. And there's some things here that you won't have even heard of, Silvers. But so, honestly, from a comedy value perspective, there is just nothing like it.
You say that like I don't already know any of the ones that you've mentioned. I have no idea what any of those that you mentioned besides The Office.
I was completely lost until you started talking about The Office.
Oh my god! Oh god. I feel like
you want to talk about being lost, Lou.
Oh god! I feel like you're being
Poor old
sheltered.
Poor old Silvers will never know what those cows are far away.
And he shows him a little picture of small, far away.
These cows are close.
And a little plastic cow in the back of the.
Yeah.
That's where Graham Norton had his first acting role, wasn't it?
Yes,
It
he
was,
was
yeah,
one
yeah.
of the priests. Yeah.
Let's do the old Riverdance album.
Playing priests. I grew up watching some others do have them.
Great.
Oh, yes.
Right.
He
feel
was
like
amazing. As an actor.
we are dominating this, and I think that we are quite right.
Let's give the Yanks a go.
Let's give you a chance to get a bit of a retort in. Tell me, Silvers, when you was growing up, did you watch comedies? Were comedies a thing? What about now? Do you know what I mean? Give me your perception on a good comedy show and what you expect to get from it, and what you found funny and things like that.
To tell you the truth, I don't watch a lot of current comedies. A lot of what I've watched and enjoyed has been sitcoms and stuff from like the 80s and 90s. MASH is one that I found extremely hilarious and had an amazing storyline, in my opinion. It's set in the Korean War. I really enjoyed Seinfeld. It was based on the actual comedian Jerry Seinfeld. There are others that I can mention, but it's kind of the idea behind what. Yeah, Cheers. I don't know if I've watched a lot of it, but I have watched some Cheers, and I did enjoy Cheers a lot.
Taxi?
Never heard of it.
No, that was good as well.
Roseanne? I mean, that dominated American TV, didn't it?
Well, it sounds like we did rather than the Yanks did.
Yeah, I watched a bunch of Roseanne growing up, since that was one of my mom's favorite programs to watch during prime time. Yeah, I mean, I had to kind of think about it for a second. I was like, what kind of comedy shows did I watch growing up? And I was thinking about like almost all the shows I watched growing up were all comedies. Where like the likes of like when I was young, like Family Guy, since Family Guy's been going on for quite some time.
Yeah.
South Park, if you wanted your crude humor fix there.
Simpsons.
The Simpsons, definitely a cornerstone of American comedy. If you had a the Muppets. I mean,
that was crap, wasn't it? That was crap.
I mean,
we all watched it.
Growing up as a kid,
yeah,
we all watched it.
Levels of humor there.
The Muppets to me was kind of more of I enjoyed it when I was a kid. Like as I grew up, like there were certain things like now, like watching like the Muppets and like some portions of Sesame Street, I'm like seeing when Big Bird's talking to Snuffleupagus, and I'm like, so is Snuffleupagus really a figment of Big Bird's imagination? And is Snuffleupagus high all the time? but like other things like that made me rewatching it as an adult made me really question how exactly did it get away with it back in the day. Watching like one big show was Ren and Stimpy. Watching Ren and Stimpy as a kid was hilarious. Watching Ren and Stimpy as an adult now, I'm like, oh my god, how was I allowed to watch this as a kid?
Yeah, I mean,
because your parents didn't realize you were watching it. That's how.
Some shows really rock that balance well. I mean, you could watch The Simpsons as a child and find it entertaining and not get any of the adult humor that was written into it quite clearly from start to finish. And then as an adult, you can watch it and appreciate that other side of the humor as well. I think The Simpsons was written, and the same with Family Guy. There they were written so well that you were able to sort of facilitate the point that anybody could watch it. And I just thought that was a brilliant thing.
Like Disney, even Disney movies were the exact same way, like all the way up until the early 2000s, where there was plenty of adult humor that was injected into it that kids would have absolutely no clue about.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to say the name of a program, and I'm going to feel the laughter of Stewie all the way from France. I am going to feel it, and I'm going to say Captain Pugwash.
How many innuendos did that have in
Do you
it?
know what I mean? So they had characters, Silvers, and imagine this. Imagine this. I'll throw a couple of things at you. So they had Seaman Staines. That was a character. They had
my God.
They had Roger the Cabin Boy.
Oh no.
Oh, there was another one, and I can't remember it.
There was, and even
Master
there was a joke, I
Bates.
think.
Master
the name
Bates.
of the
Master
Master Bates.
Bates.
That was it.
Master Bates. That was it. Sorry, Stewie, go on.
I was going to say, I think there was something with the name of the ship or something like that, wasn't there? I can't remember now.
Oh, there was. What was it?
Yeah, I can't remember.
When did this become an 18+ podcast?
It was. Oh, it was.
TV.
Yeah, we're talking about children's TV here.
It was the black. It was the Black Pig.
The Black Pig.
Yeah.
The Black Pig.
It was, yeah.
But I mean, when go on.
Yeah, I was just saying it's interesting when you're talking about the writing. I mean, you look at what Silvus was saying. One of his favourites was MASH. Okay, and basically it's a comedy set around a war zone. Okay, I mean the title song was literally about suicide and all of that. You look at Blackadder. One of the best out of the Blackadders was the Blackadder Goes Forth. Okay,
yeah.
and that was literally about the World War. And I think one of the final scenes in the final episode literally brought people to tears. When they were going over the top. And it's that masterful play of somehow getting this comedy into the most serious sort of like situations and scenarios and all of this. I mean, who didn't laugh at plump-breasted pigeons?
Yeah. And Bob.
But it was amazing stuff.
Go on then, right. Stewie, Minnie, I'm going to get you to do this. Red Dwarf was another good one, and that's sort of akin to a bit of starter. Did you watch Red Dwarf? Silvers, Candy?
Never heard of it.
It sounds familiar, but I don't think I ever did get a chance to watch.
It's like a comedy space program. They've got a really crappy
zero
shit.
budget.
Yeah, literally, they've done it. They've said, right, what have we got in the loft or the attic?
Yeah.
What have we got that we can make a set out of? Right, let's go use that and make a TV program.
I might have to ask you to stop using an American accent because you don't do it well.
It's so bad, isn't it? Do you know? It's so terrible.
Do it more.
It is so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah.
So I think then. So I mean, one of the things that I do want to throw in, one of my favorite shows of all time, which is a comedy, is The Big Bang Theory, which obviously is very, very American, and it quite frankly is one of the greatest pieces of TV ever created, in my opinion. The crossover between nerdy and mates having a laugh and just the sheer humor and the writing behind that of like some of like Sheldon's lines and the acting behind all their ability to look like awkward nerds. Do you know what I mean? When they're not, is just absolutely superb, obviously being American. And we tried to do that. And again, from a copying perspective, we've got like our own sort of version of that. And we call it the IT crowd. Have you ever watched that, Silvers?
No, but I've heard you talk about it before.
Yeah, so the IT crowd is like, again, a very low budget version of that, but there's only 2 of them rather than 5 of them, and it's just based down in an IT department of a big corporate building, and that's where that line comes from Hello IT, have you tried turning it off and back on again? It's like a really common thing. But I think the fact that we try and do like those crossovers and we try and do stuff for each other, but the humor is so different between the two, bearing in mind the theme behind them are virtually identical. the actual content and the humor is so different. And I think that is purely because of the UK versus American palette for humor.
And if you think about it, you look at the main characters of each. You've got Sheldon, who's this very socially awkward guy who he literally tiptoes around social environments and all of that, and he says the most inappropriate things without even realizing what he's doing it. And then you got Richard Ayoade in the IT crowd, who's quite literally the exact same thing.
So I mean, it's like virtually the same character, but written into a different scenario. So I think they're definitely akin to each other. But I just think that the differences between the two. And right, okay, Stewie, Minnie, have a think. What if you had to recommend? And we'll see if we can find a way to do it. If you had to think of a sitcom that you wanted Candy and Silvers that they probably won't have seen, to maybe watch a couple of episodes of and give us some feedback, maybe on a future podcast. We'll find a way to get it from. Because don't forget, episodes are 20 minutes, 25 minutes. It's not a great use of time, but something that they would really appreciate. Where would you push them, Minnie? Where would you push them to go and watch something in terms of good British humour?
Monty Python.
Yeah.
Monty Python, 110%. Yeah,
Which
Monty
one?
Python. Any of those sketches. Ministry of Silly Walks, The Dead Parrot.
Yeah.
Dead Parrot. Ooh, exciting.
It sounds a lot worse than what it actually is. Holy Grail.
Yeah. But it was called their sketch ones that they did. It was actually called "And Now for Something Totally Different" or "Completely Different," something like that.
Okay,
And it was literally just a load of their sketches together.
Yeah.
And showing all the stuff. For films, then I love the Holy Grail. I hate how it ended.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
I totally hate. I literally thought that they just ran out and says, "Guys, I really don't know how the hell we can finish this."
Okay, and
then
they Game of Thrones did.
Yeah, that's a good analogy actually. But I think they might have thought they were being clever with it, saying, "Well, let's just totally twist this up." But it didn't work for me.
No, it didn't work.
Whereas on the other hand, Life of Brian, absolutely amazing ending.
Agreed.
Completely amazing ending, you know. So they had it in them, and I just think I think they made the wrong call on that one.
Yeah.
But it's not a reason not to watch it.
No,
definitely not.
What would you push the guys to watch, Stewie?
I think it would be one of the Blackadders, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily, even though I think Go Forth is probably the best. I think for comedic value, it's
3.
Prince Regent.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it would allow them to laugh a little bit at the British aristocracy hierarchy type thing of the prince.
Too.
I'd like that.
Yeah, I think that was Queenie 2 then, was she?
Queenie was 2.
She was 2, yeah.
1 was the one where they were roles reversed. So Baldrick was the clever one and Blackadder was the idiot.
Yes, yeah. Well, that was Bob. That was the age of Bob.
No, it wasn't. No.
She was Queenie. Yeah. No, he's Queenie.
Bob was in Queenie, and then Bob was in 4. Bob was in Blackadder Goes Forth. She was Melchit's driver. Yeah.
That's right.
Because she hangs around with a big knob, so she'll be used to a fella like me. Woof!
Prince Regent wasn't there when they were trying to write the dictionary?
Yes, it
the
was.
young ones.
That was 3.
And he goes, right, something that begins with A, and he goes, a dog.
Yeah. And your definition of dog is not a cat.
Not a cat. Yes, I think that's it. Prince Regent. So
Prince Regent, Blackadder.
Yeah, Blackadder 3.
I can't argue with that. I think I would push you somewhere the same, and maybe a couple of episodes of Only Fools and Horses, maybe like the Chandelier one or the Fall Through the Bar one. I think with Only Fools and Horses, though, I don't think you could just pick it up and watch it from anywhere. I think you need to sort of understand the backstory and understand what's going on with it to find some of it funny and some of the characters and some of the long-standing jokes like Dave and Boise and all that sort of thing. I think to understand what's going on, you maybe need a bit more in-depth.
If they were looking at something that I might push Silvers towards, because I do think he likes his sort of dry humor a little bit and all that. It's a sitcom that was quite recent. It didn't go on for too long, and it was called Bad Move, and it was with Jack D.
Oh,
okay,
right. Not seen it.
And Jack D is, I mean, I love his absolute star. I mean, that my hellos are inspired by Jack D. You know,
Okay.
his
So we've got him
lack
to
of
blame.
enthusiasm and stuff. Yeah. So it's his dryness, his lack of enthusiasm for anything. He's just so funny. He really is funny, and he's great in this bad move. And it's one that's worth watching. I think Silvers might enjoy that.
Well, it sounds like his spirit animal, if I'm being honest. Silvers, what would you push us to watch that we probably haven't seen from an American comedy base?
So one of my close favorites is one that's more recent, and it's called Silicon Valley. It's centered around a up and coming tech company that is hitting problem after problem, and there's disputes between the coworkers because they all live in the same house, and I just find it hilarious. I don't know if Candy, if you've seen it, but I do think it's one of the it's a good example of current American humor. This was just put out within the past couple of years. I've seen it twice, which is saying something.
Yeah, shouldn't watch anything.
I've seen a couple of episodes of it, and it is actually quite good. It's very good, because doesn't he write his own game or something like that, and then they want to buy something and they buy it. I remember from the episodes that I watched, it all got quite complicated about who was trying to buy out who and own what and all of this, but it was all done quite funny, and they were literally just trying to get through and get to the other side, weren't they? Really.
Basically, yeah, and it's a lot like that the other show that Lou brought up, where you can't just pick it up in the middle. It is very storyline based. You have to start from the beginning, get to know the characters, get to know the plot, but you will truly enjoy the show if you watch it.
Well, I've made a note of that, and I'll definitely have a look at that, especially if it's got Stewie's endorsement, because that is the only thing I do worry about. I do worry about the fact that our humours are relatively different. It takes a bit for me to actually find an American comedy that I actually find funny.
If you like Big Bang, you'll like this. I'm not saying it's the same, but I think deep down it's taken inspiration from it in certain elements. The humor is it's good. It's good. Would you agree, Silvers?
Yeah, I do.
What about you, Candy? Anything that you can throw a suggestion out for us Brits?
For one recommendation I would have would be King of the Hill. It originally came out back in like the late '90s, and I think if I remember right, it had something like 7 to 9 seasons or something like that. But it is a cartoon. It kind of followed in the same vein, in the same sort of like success that The Simpsons and Family Guy kind of had. They were all broadcasted in the same group at night,
right?
But it follows the life trials and tribulations of the stereotypical Texan dad and his family. So you be able to work on your American accent a bit and learn all about hillbilly culture.
Is American Dad? Hold on, am I thinking of the right? No, King of the Hill is different to American Dad, isn't it? Which is the one with Giggity?
Yeah, because American Dad is by the same creator that did Family Guy, so it uses a lot of the same actors. And American Dad is as Family Guy is.
I think King of the Hill has been on Sky before as well. I think it used to play on
Was
Sky.
it Nickelodeon?
No, it was on Fox.
Was it Fox? Was it?
Yeah, I can't remember.
It would have been 5 for us then.
The name rings a bell. That's all. The name rings a bell. So we've got a couple of suggestions there for everybody, which I think is good. And I think we can just agree that although it's very, very different, we've both got our own different styles of humour, and I don't think they're going to change anytime soon. Because they do tend to stick to your niche. You know what I mean? Your niche sort of comedy values that appeal to your particular audience. I totally agree. Okay, right then. Next thing we're going to move on to the Star Trek topic of the pod. Now, this is a bit of a different one. We're going in about a bit of a macabre level for this one. And we're going to talk about characters that have died, that like we either didn't really want to die, that we were surprised that they died, but we think that they had more to offer, but they still passed within the show. So characters, not actors, characters that passed within Star Trek episodes or series or movies or whatever. So I'll start with you, Silvers, because I know you'll have a list of 45 people that have died. So we'll start with you so that we can get one of yours out of the way and ticked off. Give us somebody that died that you wasn't super happy about or that you would like to have seen more from.
My list isn't actually that long, and that's because I struggled to come up with the list. But I'm actually going to give two because they both have the same reason for why I didn't like that they passed. And these two are Hammer from Stranger Worlds and Giorgio from the actual captain of the Discovery, not the mirror version.
Yeah.
Really?
And the reason that I'm going after those two is because I watched those shows after the arcs came into STFC. So I knew the characters from the game. And when I started watching the shows for the first time, I was expecting to get to know these characters. And I think Giorgio died on the first episode.
Yeah.
Hammer died within the first season. So it was a bit of a disappointment to see these officers that I use quite often in the game who were obviously important enough to be put into the game, but didn't have a lot of storyline in Star Trek itself.
No, I think that's a really good point. I mean, I think Hemmer's death was a bit needless, really. I mean, I thought it was great character. I thought it had great character development. Giorgio's slightly different in a sense that we did get her back, didn't we? We got a version of Philippa Giorgio.
We got a mirror version. It's definitely different, different ideals. Sure, it's the same actor, but it is a different character.
Yeah,
and we do have the difference between the mirror Giorgio and the true Giorgio, one of which I use on a daily basis, the other never gets used.
Yeah,
which kind of is backwards from how the show plays out.
True. I mean, obviously, yeah, when you relate it to game, yeah, we use the old one. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I do think it was I didn't mind the Giorgio one because we still got her as a character, and I think the actor's brilliant. I think she plays an absolute corker, and I think she plays the antagonist a lot better than what she would have played a nice fluffy captain. I think she plays the antagonist role really, really well. So I think that's a nice one. What about you, Candy?
My choice was like that. Actually, kind of came to me right away. Was Cedo Jaxa from the Next Generation. When she was first shown in the episode where with Nova Squadron, where they accidentally, when one of their shipmates in the Nova Squadron dies during an accident, they're testing on a new maneuver, but then you don't see her again until season 7 when she kind of like tries to make herself a little bit more of a prominent character in Captain Picard's eyes, and then she ends up going on a undercover mission to deliver a Cardassian spy back to them, and ends up falling victim to a setup and dies in the process.
Without
and just
doubt.
the somber message that Captain Picard has to and then announce to the rest of the crew that she has passed on. Like that one hit harder than a lot of the other ones that I've seen throughout the series.
Especially for a character that we didn't know massively. I've got a trivia question. That I'm going to see if any of you can get, and if not, we'll pass it out and see who can get it from the recording and come back. What was the name of the maneuver? What was the name of the maneuver that they were illicitly not allowed to do, that they tried to do, that led to the death of that cadet, that they ended up all going on trial? Nearly.
Was it Starburst? Something or other.
What was
it? Nova Burst?
It's a Colbert Starburst.
Colbert Starburst.
You got enough of it. And what about you, Minnie? Who died that we're not happy with? Well, that you're not happy with?
Well, I struggled with this one because I had to really, really think about who was important and there wasn't really anyone, so I had to go with storyline, and that would be Commander Ro Lauren, because bringing her back for season 3 of Picard and having them both fix what happened in TNG and and then sending her off on her way and blowing her up. I mean, hello. Was not expecting that. Spoilers. Sorry.
No, I
people.
agree, and and Ro obviously was sort of instrued through a few episodes, wasn't she? She wasn't a regular cast member; she was like a recurring secondary character, wasn't she? And
Troublemaker, wasn't she?
she was. I mean, obviously we saw her early doors, we saw her come back, and basically we saw her leave to join the Maquis, didn't we? At one point.
Yep.
Obviously, then she came back. So no, I agree. I did think it was odd because obviously now they've lost the ability to use her in future things unless they just end up bringing her back to life, which they might well do, which happens, which I'm sure will come up at some point during this conversation. Shall we? Who's dead?
Yeah, my choice is Ro. Okay.
Oh, come on now. She's back to life already. Only took 10 seconds and she's back alive.
No, it was funny because we were having a chat before the show about this, and I think I can't think of anyone. And then literally just before this section came in, I went, "Oh, yes, there was someone after all," and it was Ro. But, and again, spoiler for anyone who's still watching the end of Picard, put your fingers in your ears. I found that in general, Picard, and especially that last season, gave us quite a few, because one of the ones that was really quite touching, if you like, was Q's goodbye to Picard.
Oh, good one. I never even thought of that.
That was, I mean, that really actually tugged at the heartstrings, because I thought that was so honest and true, and it's like he really did like him after all. He saw him as almost an equal, if you like, even though they were nowhere near equal.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, obviously, the story of Q, obviously, introduced that went through everything, didn't it? I mean, Q has been one of the best recurring characters, if not the best recurring non-main cast member in the whole of Trek. I think I can probably quite comfortably say that, and I can't think of another one that I would choose over him. And to see him go when all we've ever known is him be omnipotent, trouble causer, and all that sort of thing, and to see him finally sort of give up the ghost, as it were.
And again, he wasn't the only one we lost that season. That there was a few, and this is where Picard seemed to be slightly different from all of the other ones, where it seemed to be less worried about losing main cast members or characters within the actual storyline. I mean, I won't mention any more in case you've got that in your list, but there was another big loss in Picard as well. So yeah, but Q, that was a real sort of like tug of the heartstring moment.
Yeah. I'll save that one for you because I know who you're going to say, because I'm going to talk about somebody that I didn't want to die because I really like the character. And we've mentioned this before on Brits and Yanks Talk Trek. We've talked about Tasha Yar, and Tasha Yar was mine. And I was just of the opinion that I thought she played a really good, authoritative female character. And I was a bit mad. This is going to sound mad, this. I was a bit annoyed that we replaced her with a bloke because I thought a woman played that part really well as like head of security. And I just feel that the way that she died, now we all know that Denise Crosby wanted out of the franchise because she didn't feel like she was being used well enough. I genuinely never saw that. I always saw her as a main character. Obviously, she never thought that being on the set and all that sort of thing for the actual reasons of the character. But to die to what was the black splodge called, Silvus? I know you know the name. Armus. I'm thinking of that bloody FT from the game, aren't I? Yeah, Armus.
Agamus was the computer in Lower Decks that went evil.
Of course it was.
But Armus was the black goo that got prank called also in Lower Decks.
Oh no, so funny. So when we're talking about comedy, Lower Decks, I'm surprised that never came into it as good American humor. You had an opportunity there, Silvus. We should have thrown that. We should have thrown that in. But yeah, but I think the death of Tasha, I think it became a point where it was necessary to get the character out of the story, but I think I would have preferred her to have a way back in that was better than having an alter ego in terms of Sealer. I think it would have been nicer if she'd just left to go to another ship or gone to do something else, so they could have potentially brought her back.
Sealer wasn't even an alter ego.
No, she was a daughter, wasn't she?
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, sorry, I meant like an alter ego of Denise Crosby. Obviously, we had no way of bringing Denise Crosby back unless it was either Sealer or obviously they brought her back in a time travel episode, didn't they? Where we met. I think that was the only encounter of the Enterprise C. I don't think there was any other encounters of the Enterprise C other than that episode with Tasha. But I feel like her character development could have gone a hell of a lot better. Until we go to Stewie for his last one, because I know that he has got another one. Has anybody got anybody else that they would like to mention as deaths that we're not really happy with that we think could have potentially gone on longer as a character?
Oh, I have a few.
Go on.
I'd like to say the Law, Data's brother.
Okay. Can you remember how Law died?
I know it was during Picard, and I think it was more the it was no.
You put her on the spot if she can't answer.
Interaction. No, it wasn't so much the fact that how he died. It was the interaction of Data with Law.
Within his own mind, you mean? When
Yeah,
he came back with as the three personalities in himself.
Yeah,
because it was a mishmash of wasn't it a mishmash of him, Law, and
it was
Picard as well, wasn't it?
Death. Yeah, it was Data's death, but it was the death of his brother that was the sad bit. It was like him. Just delete all that. That's fine.
No, because I think it was a really good one because I thought Law was a fantastic character. And in the end of it, I think Data actually deactivated him for the final time. Data was actually responsible for doing that. And if you weren't aware of this, the actual future of Law was his mind and body was donated to the Daystrom Institute, along with all the Zoom's research and all that sort of thing. But that's where Law actually ended up. But the actual final deactivation was done by his brother. It was like a Christ almighty, going a bit deep, but it was like an assisted suicide, wasn't it, of an android? Do you know what I mean? For him to actually, that was how he actually got rid of Law, and how we actually got rid of him from the story. But Stewie, you're on the same sort of vein, aren't you, with one that
it's
sad death.
Yeah, it's the scene with Picard and Data. That was such a good scene. In a way, very very topical at the moment, but very crossover franchise.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of the death scene in Blade Runner. On the rooftops, where Harrison Ford's talking to Rutger Hauer's character, and he knows that this time's come, and he's saying, "Look, I've seen these things you wouldn't even believe," and it just seemed to it had this resonance towards that sort of feel to it, where he says, I've had a good one. And all of this.
Yeah, I've had a decent life, haven't I? I mean, it wasn't the first time that we lost Data, was it? Because I mean, you got to think that realistically, we actually lost Data for the first time in Nemesis. Obviously, when he shot the engine on the scimitar,
sacrificed,
to save Picard, he put the little mobile transporter thing on him, didn't he? And used that to get him back to the Enterprise E. And he was blown up with the scimitar. He sacrificed himself, but it was the same episode where we found another Soon android that they basically put all of Data's memories in, and that's how Data was actually prolonged, wasn't it? That's how Data survived to be able to appear in Picard.
And can we talk about deaths without mentioning the nice little nod that we had between the initial movie Spock death, if you like, with the Kelvin films, where they flipped the characters around, where it was actually Kirk on the inside and Spock on the outside. I mean, how great was that?
It was just such a great idea because it was such an iconic scene, and I think it would have been a total disservice to have done it the right way around based on the TOS era and have had Spock in the chamber. It's basically, seen this. This has already happened.
A total nod. It wasn't. It was a total nod to that scene without basically plagiarizing. It was done well. It was done in a nice manner.
I'm still a huge fan of all of the J.J. Abrams stuff. Do you know what I mean?
I liked him.
I was gutted when they didn't end up making more of them, to be honest. I think that had a hell of a lot of legs to be able to go. Candy, anybody else that we've lost that you think that we should talk about? I've got a couple.
Not off the top of my head, no.
I do have one.
Go on, Silvers.
that I feel cannot go unmentioned, and that's Jadzia.
Oh,
Somebody's gonna bring it up
for different
so,
reasons. Yes, yes, yes.
Jadzia being the host of a symbiote who was later passed on to Ezri, also the wife to Worf, and we really saw her development in multiple seasons of Deep Space Nine.
Six seasons. 6 seasons. She
Yeah.
died at the end of the 6th season, so literally it was only the 7th season that she wasn't a part of.
Yep.
Which I think makes you wonder, why did they do it if they lasted her that long, and also that the fallout from that is the amount of people from the fan base that really did not like Ezri Dax
No.
for no other reason than she wasn't Jads.
No, absolutely. And
Yeah.
basically,
and I think, and to be honest, I'll be totally honest. I mean, Minnie, correct me if you disagree with this, but I totally think that Ezri played a corker, because I think they found another actor with another style. Obviously, she looked totally different, but she also had a
Completely different,
totally
yeah.
different personality as well. So we actually saw another side of the Dax symbiont, and it was the only time really where we've been able to see a symbiont interacting with the same group of people within 2 different hosts, and be able to see how that struggle actually works. We don't see that amongst anything else with the Trill, which I can imagine being a big thing. I mean, what did you think, Minnie, about the Ezri Jadzia switch?
I mean, there was a bit of annoyance. Like, she was young, she was innocent, and yes, she was hard to swallow because she was no longer Jadzia. But
Yeah.
like you say, the only person who had known the Dax in another form was Cisco.
Yeah.
So we were now learning what Cisco would have gone through the first time that he'd
Great
met
point.
the old man
Great point.
in Jadzia's body.
Great point.
So
And we're able to sort of empathize with that because we knew Jadzia. Obviously, 6 full seasons of 26 episodes a season. Do you know what I mean? She was in pretty much every single one. We really got to know Jads, and we only had 1 season to get to know Ezri. And we didn't get to know her as well as, obviously, we got to know Jadzia in the end. But we got to see the struggles between how all of that interaction works, especially with Worf. I mean, Worf wouldn't even talk to her at the start, would he? He wouldn't even talk to her. So obviously it was a really strange. Obviously, it was nice to see that side, and obviously sort of explore the Trill symbiont passing on generations. And it's probably a reason why they shouldn't ever really go back into the other person's life, should they? Because obviously you just sort of saw all the nightmares that actually physically caused. And I think the final one for me that I want to talk about, I mean, we'll stick with Deep Space Nine, and I don't know if this is a death. I don't know if we're considering this a death, but I think it was a death of him in a humanoid form. Cisco. I mean, the only time, other than James T. Kirk, who obviously, again, another death, which I don't even want to talk about. I don't even want to bring attention to it, because I think the way he died was just the most atrocious method of dying. Candy, you was telling us that wasn't actually the original plot line for Kirk to die. Tell us about that.
Yeah, there's a...
Lube goes from, I don't want to talk about it, to, hey, can you talk about it?
Talk about it.
I know, but I prefer the alternate.
He's not talking about it.
I prefer the alternate, so I think we should voice it.
Yeah, there's a... I'm trying to remember. I don't remember what exactly, or which exact Trek culture video it was, but they were talking about how that entire section of Generations was rewritten, where Kirk was essentially was supposed to be supposed to have killed Dr. Soren, and then through some other form of line of events ends up dying a completely different style of death in the movie itself. But there was some sort of conflict within the writing team or with the actors that they had to rewrite it completely, and that the end result that we see on the big screen ended up being quite a bit of a letdown versus what it could have potentially been instead.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree. And I think that's all the homage I'm going to give to it. I prefer Candy's version. I think that's what they should have ran with, if I'm being honest with you. But obviously, Ben Sisko got taken in with the Prophets, didn't he? He ended up going into the wormhole, as it were, and living as a wormhole alien emissary, taking up that responsibility as opposed to being a corporeal life form. Oh, corporeal. That was a big word, wasn't it? I'll stick with that. So obviously going to that, really, that was...
I don't think it means what you think it means.
Well, it sounded bloody good anyway. It sounded good.
If you said this topic was which one of our off which one of the Star Trek things did we miss once they ascended, then of course we'd all have gone for Cisco.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to do a golf clap right now, but I don't think my mic would pick it up.
Oh, thanks for that.
I mean,
I can do this one.
That one.
I mean, if we're talking about characters that ascended, I mean, we could also talk about Wesley Crusher as well, ascending to the role of a traveler.
God, we could go down so many rabbit holes with this, but I think we've explored a hell of a lot of death there, and I think we need to move on to something a little bit more positive, and the positive is going to be the absolute end of the show. So I want to say a massive thank you to everybody. Remember, people.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Nobody should celebrate that. The most enthusiastic Stewie's been all podcast, and it's because it's coming to an end. Thank you so much, everybody. We are available on all major podcast platforms. Obviously, if you are watching on Apple or Podbean, please leave us a 6 out of 5 star review. It really massages our ego and gives us a shot in the arm to continue to do this. We are going to be reading the reviews on future shows, so get your reviews in and you could be one of the first ones. Remember to join our Discord. Discord is the hive of where you can talk to all of the members of the panel. You can also access all of the chats that Stewie do creates, all the ones that Silvers creates, and access pretty much everything that you need to know about STFC to ask questions. And we're more than happy to have conversations about Star Trek and stuff on there as well. You can check us out on all of our other channels, so the likes of Twitch. You can find myself, It's Lube, and you can find Mini Mabel on there as well, obviously the Trouble Mother herself. And you can find, we now have 2 YouTube channels. You can watch this podcast on YouTube. We have a brand new Brits and Yanks Talk Trek YouTube channel. Please go and follow it on there. We're trying to get that up to the magic heights of 1,000 subscribers so that we actually qualify for being considered a real podcast on YouTube. So any help you can do for us there, that will be amazing. And obviously my standard YouTube for It's Lube for Star Trek Fleet Command content. Send us your feedback. We want your questions, and we also want your topics for future shows. Check out the website where you can pick up all of the merch, which is expertly curated by Candy White. Absolutely fantastic. Go grab yourself a t-shirt. A Brits and Yanks Talk Trek t-shirt is available on there in multiple colours, and I will tell you, done it, guys. It looks amazing, doesn't it? And it feels amazing. The quality is really good.
If you could see the mix of the anthems that we do for the Freedom and Reason segment, that's what the t-shirt is.
It's so good.
Exactly.
So please go and check that out on our website and consider becoming a member for the cost of just a latte a month, $3 a month, our lowest membership tier. You can come and you can help support financially to the ongoing production of Brits and Yanks Talk Trek. Thank you. I'm going to say thank you to everybody who's done that already. I'm going to say a huge thank you to Mini Mabel, Antares, Cobain, Sorella, Deja, Trek Diva, Andy, KKC, Moth, Dr. Ryan Chef, and Star Ocean. And I'm going to say a huge thank you to you for being members of the podcast. It's amazing for everything that you do, all the support. We appreciate it so much. Thank you so much to every member of the panel. We have got the entire team with us today, which is always amazing. So a huge thank you to Silvers, Stewie, Minnie, and Candy. Thank you for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. And remember, guys, that absolutely everything is better with lube. Take care and have a wonderful evening. Tatty bye.
Bye. Bye.